The best chance for gun legislation in Washington failed in the Senate yesterday. The measure would have called for expanded background checks. President Obama, who is known for keeping his cool, was visibly angry. He spoke afterwards in the White House Rose Garden.
But instead of supporting this compromise, the gun lobby and its allies willfully lied about the bill. There were no coherent arguments as to why we wouldn't do this. It came down to politics. But this effort is not over. I want to make it clear to the American people, we can still bring about meaningful changes that reduce gun violence, so long as the American people don't give up on it.
We're joined now by a special guest, Richard Feldman of the independent Firearm Owners of America. He's in Dallas. Richard, good morning.
Good morning.
So you argue that this bill really suffered from bad marketing.
In many ways, that's true. I think calling it the Manchin-Toomey bill late in the process, just in the last few days, I think there was confusion from gun owners about what was in the bill. I only saw it myself finally on Sunday of this week, but there's all parts of that bill of very pro-gun legislation that would have done lots of positive things, and the misnomer so many gun owners had was that this was some sort of universal background checks. In fact, what it was is what we call the Gun Show Preservation and Protection Act. It did include background checks at gun shows, but basically put a barricade and said just at gun shows. It had no impact whatsoever on truly personal sales between people who know each other, friends, relatives, coworkers, neighbors.
Richard, we should talk about your organization, IFOA. You used to work at the NRA, and IFOA is really born. You're trying to take the power away from the NRA leading the gun lobby?
No, I don't think that's not even our intent, nor would that likely happen. The NRA is a very powerful and strong organization, and the obituaries were written after the tragedy in Sandy Hook were, once again, grossly overstated and way premature.
And yet you argue that they wage their political power in ways that are unproductive?
Well, it depends. You know, like any large entity, they tend to be slow to turn on a dime. Don't want to get in their way when they get moving, but in legislation, sometimes the legislation turns very quickly and goes in a different direction, and yet when you're opposed to a bill by number or by who its original author is, even though the legislation has changed substantially in what it accomplishes and is very useful and helpful, you still end up opposing something because it's slow to change.
Okay, and just lastly, Richard, would the NRA, you're saying, would they probably have blocked anything in this instance or not? You think that they may have supported a different type of bill? Is there a possibility that the next steps that this could move forward?
I don't think that's likely in this Congress, but it was a starting point for us. Our legislation, this bill, which encompassed much of what we've always supported in fixing gun shows and making them safer and preserving them, because they're good institutions, and protecting the buyers and the sellers. That's gotten further than it ever has before, and I think we'll see in future Congresses this legislation move forward.
Okay, Richard Feldman in Dallas from the Independent Firearm Owners of America. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.